Um, we are so excited to have you here and welcome today to our professional development series. I am really excited to have our speaker today, Pamela Weinberg, who is going to talk about managing your quarter life crisis. Before I hand it over to Pamela, two quick housekeeping items. The session is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Nicole Bush, she is our director. She will post the link, as we continue the session. And if you have any tech issues, feel free to message Nicole throughout the time. She can help you troubleshoot. And so I realized I hadn't even said, I think who I am. My name is Sarah McAllister. I was so excited about the topic. My name is Sarah McAllister. I'm the Associate Director here for Alumni Career and Professional Development at Tulane in the Office of Alumni Relations. And like I mentioned, Nicole Bush is with us. She's our director. So it's going to be recorded. And then also, Pamela is going to go through about 40 minutes-ish of content, and then we're going to have time for Q&A at the end. So feel free, if you think of questions throughout, if you want to put them in the chat, great. But we are going to kind of wait till the end to answer those questions, but please add them as you think about it. And then I think that's it. Pamela and Nicole and I were just talking about how important this topic is. And I'm going to stop talking because I think it's great. And I'm so excited to learn from her. So Pamela, thank you. And I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm in New York, so Eastern time for me, 1 o'clock. And I'm really, really excited to be here today to talk about this topic. And I am not a Tulane alum, although I wish I were, but my son went to Tulane. So I'm a proud Tulane parent and was telling the gals that I'm super excited to come down for Jazz Fest at the end of the month. So I'm really, really excited to get back to NOLA. So I am a career coach and I work a lot with this demographic. Quarter life crisis means, 25, but I work with people in all stages of career development, but my sweet spot and what I really enjoy are coaching people who are early careerists, people who are anywhere from college seniors to, early 30s, and helping people build their careers. So I'm going to talk today a lot about quarter life crisis, what it is, and how to hopefully give you some tools on how to get out of it if you're feeling one. So without further ado, let's talk about happiness by age. So if you're feeling like you are less happy than you were when you were in your early 20s or in college, you're not alone. As you can see from the graph here, some of the happiest years were those when you were, teenager through your 4 years of college, of course, best 4 years of your life, especially if you're a Tulane student. And then that definitely falls off. As I was speaking with Sarah and Nicole about this beforehand, that it is a time of, you graduate, you're kind of excited once you're graduating, and if you have a job and maybe you're moving, you're going to move into an apartment with friends, or maybe go back to where you grew up and excited to reconnect with friends. And then sort of after that, the novelty can wear off pretty quickly. And you're like, oh, okay, so this is it for me for the next 50 years, and maybe you're not as happy as you had hoped with the job you have, your situation, your career choice. Maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have, majored in X instead of Y. And that's all very, very normal. You obviously by looking at this chart, you can see that you're not alone in feeling less happy at this stage of your life. But you can also see that starts to climb again. So that's a good feeling. And I'm hoping that by the end of today, you'll have some ideas on how to pull yourselves out of crisis mode and move on to more happiness. So what are some of the factors that cause this quarter life crisis? So the first one really is, the real world. You're on your own for the first time. Maybe you have to, support yourself for the first time in your life. Your parents aren't, helping you. That's a lot of pressure to, even if you're unhappy at a job, to stick it out because you have bills to pay. So that's, anxiety can be very anxiety provoking. The amount of anxiety that your generation has lived with has been really tremendous. Growing up in a world with events that have provoked a lot of insecurity, growing up in a really different world that I grew up in, in the 70s, 9/11, school shootings, COVID. There's just been so many factors that have really caused a lot of anxiety. So that definitely helps contribute to that feeling of being in a crisis. Choosing a career path, deciding when you're, a sophomore in college, this is my major, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is very stressful. How do you really know at 20, what you're going to be forever? And, I know for myself, I've changed careers 3 or 4 times. I'm in my 50s. So, and I remember myself having a quarter life crisis when I graduated college. I went into advertising because that's what my dad did. I really didn't know anything else. And after 2 years, I was like, I really don't like this. Like, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh. So I can very much relate. And I remember that feeling so well, being so afraid of leaving and how am I going to earn money if I don't do this, and et cetera, et cetera. Lack of positive social role models. And this goes right into sort of internet and social media, which I think can make everybody feel horrible at some point in their lives. Because it looks like everyone is doing better than you are. Everyone's posting the one picture a day where they're like really happy at work, or I love my colleagues, or as Sarah said, #blessed. It's really just not true and not fair. You're sort of marking yourself to market with like a Mark Zuckerberg who dropped out of college and started Facebook and became a billionaire. That's really not what's happening for most people who are in their 20s. Most people in their 20s are struggling just like you are, as you saw from our happiness chart. So I think that that's really just adds on an extra layer of anxiety when you see people around you looking like they're doing better. They're going out for these fabulous dinners, they're going on these trips, and you're like, oh well, my life really kind of sucks compared to that. So I think all of those factors really help to contribute. So what can we do to change this? So let's think about, starting now, your career roadmap. Where are you now? So you want to think about, you want to assess. I always say your first job out of college is often like that first pancake out of the batch. It's kind of the one that you look at and you're like, yeah, toss that one, or maybe like I'll snap on it when I'm making the better ones. But, so first jobs are important because it's your first job, but it certainly will not be your last job. So, just rest assured that that is the case. So you want to assess, like, where are you now? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What don't you like about it? Is it the job? Is it the career? And we're going to talk a lot more about the types of assessments we can do. Then you're going to be able to research some other opportunities based upon what you find throughout the assessment, the career assessment process. And then we're going to give you some tools to chart your path to reinventing yourself and hopefully getting out of your crisis. So I thought it would be a good idea to, before we launch into our assessment phase, this is just sort of something for you to keep in mind when you're thinking about sort of where you are now, what are some of the trends in job trends in 2022? For some of you who are more recent graduates, you probably had a lot of your work remotely, doing work remotely, which will definitely be a trend that's going to continue. If that's something that you're interested in, there are lots of opportunities for hybrid work, flexibility, working from home. But as a career coach, I feel like it's so really important, especially starting out in your early career, to really have some face time, in office time for professional development. It's so helpful. There's no substitute for being able to just like knock on your boss's door and say like, hey, do you have a minute? I just want to go over something with you. Really hard to do that via Zoom. So I would definitely say, that there is a trend toward flexibility, which is great. Most people are not going to have to be in an office 5 days a week from 9 to 5. But if you have the opportunity to get a job or you can have some in-office space time, I would say that would be a great way to help really not only build your career, but honestly, making friends at work is so critical to enjoying what you do. I saw that very much with my clients who only worked remotely. They feel it's lonely, working at home, living at home, working from home, not having the opportunity to, have friends at work. That was like such a big, when you're young and in your 20s, I know for myself, that was such a big part of my social life, was meeting work friends, and it just makes going to work that much more fun. So I would definitely say, if you have the opportunity and that's something that appeals to you, put that on your list of wants, put that on your wish list for your next role. Freelance and contract work is another job market trend that's definitely here to stay. And whether that's, for full-time work or even side hustles or side gigs, doing photography on the side or doing writing on the side as a way to supplement income is something that is also here to stay. And there are so many opportunities to do that with websites like Fiverr or Upwork, where you can just list yourself as a freelancer. That's also, by the way, a great way to gain experience in an area if you're thinking about making a job switch and are already working full-time, doing something else. It's a great way to build up your resume by having a side hustle as well. Entrepreneurial opportunities. People really leaned into becoming entrepreneurs during the pandemic. And again, I think that's something that's really here to stay as well. Coming up with, ideas for your own business to be self-supporting. Major focus on DEI and ESG in the workplace at, all across the board at a variety of companies and industries. These two are really also here to stay. And tech rules. If you are, looking for jobs and you have any interest in tech and you decide that that's a career change, you want to make, anything in the tech area, either tech companies or working in tech for another company, that's really where the jobs are. And that's, that also is something that I feel is here to stay. So, okay, so now let's move on to some of the assessments that I was talking about. So there are 3 assessments when I work with clients. One of the first things that I, more often than not, in my first session with a client who is either trying to get out of their quarter life crisis or in some kind of transition, I do a lot of coaching around career transitions. So I'll do 3 assessments: a career values assessment, a skills assessment, and an interest assessment. So even though values is number 2 on my deck, it really is number 1. Thinking about your career values is probably the most important thing, and especially for you all who are, in that crisis mode, probably a big part of that is that what you're doing now isn't a fit with your values in some way, shape, or form. So what are career values? Career values are the things that are the most important to you in a career, the non-negotiables. So I say it's the non-negotiables and the nice to haves are the things that really make you feel like you're in a career that fits well. So what are some examples of career values? And they're different for everyone. But the two that tend to come up most often are money and flexibility, which are often the two things that don't always go together. If you want to make a lot of money, you don't typically get a lot of flexibility. Although I have to say with the pandemic and people working from home, that is changing because, if you consider flexibility being able to work from home, if you did, a day or so a week, then that would, check the box in flexibility. Some other things that come up often, especially with young professionals, are jobs or companies that offer professional development, opportunities, mentorship, collaborative approach, a good career track, ability to get promoted, a company that has a mission that you care about is another thing that often comes up with those folks in their 20s who are unhappy in a job or career. So your values are your own. I'm just giving you some examples from my years of experience with what often comes up, but this is something that you can definitely do yourself. And what I really like is, people do your values, skills, and interests assessments, and I'm going to talk about skills and interest in a minute. You can really utilize those as a rubric for looking at job descriptions. Like, does this job description match my career values? And that's a great way to really sort of mark yourself to market and say, okay, like, this is what's important to me. Are the jobs I'm looking at or the companies I'm looking at, do they match up? Because the mismatch is, as I said, often what makes us unhappy. So skills and interests would be the next two assessments I would do. Skills or, skills for things like public speaking, ability to do a great PowerPoint presentation, Excel, things like that. And sometimes, like, I've worked with clients who work in banking, let's say, and they are really good at Excel, but they never want to do Excel again. So while they may have that as a skill, it may not be a skill they want to take with them to their next job. So you want to think about, the skills you have, but also the skills you really want to lean into and use. Like, maybe you're really creative, but you're working in a job that doesn't tap into your creativity. So you want to make sure that you're able to utilize that skill in your next job. And then interests. What do you like? What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up? And even, I ask people, like, go back to your major. Like, why did you decide to major in English? What were you thinking? What was your thought process? What are other people who had your major doing? What other careers have you considered, by talking to friends, seeing what they're doing? What else are you interested in? So, the value, skills, and interests assessment sort of go together, and after you're done with those, you can typically start to sort of get a sense of potential careers that line up and check those boxes. If you feel that, doing the assessments on your own isn't enough, then there are a couple of really great assessment tools. I've listed them here. One's called Type Focus, the other Strengths Finder, but it's actually called Clifton Strengths now. Sorry about that. I should have made that change, but it's called Clifton Strengths now. And that is my favorite. It's not free. Type Focus has a lot of free ones. Clifton Strengths is not free, but I think it's like $50-ish, and it's a great tool. You come away with your top 5 strengths, and it tells you how to lean into those strengths for careers and jobs. So I have found that one to be really useful, as have my clients. Lastly, if you're still stuck, assemble a personal board of directors. I, believe it or not, I actually did this for myself when I was changing careers. And it's a great, I sent out like I assembled my personal board of directors, people who knew me well in a professional sense or personal sense. And I kind of said, like, what am I the go-to person for? What am I good at? How would you describe me in a few adjectives? And that really helped, to say, oh, okay, so they do see me as someone who is a really good resource. And that's something as a career coach that I lean into a lot, being a good resource, and something that I leaned into from the last career that I had. So it was really great to get that validation and feedback from the personal board of directors as well. So here are, a few ideas for you in sort of figuring out next steps. So once you have gone through those assessments, however you decide to do them, you'll be ready to move on to doing some research based upon what you found, your skills, interests, values. Where has that led you? So you want to start doing some research. And there are lots of great research tools for job search. Vault.com is one of them. Glassdoor is another. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is a great one, and it's actually put out by the government. And you can actually put in your zip code, and they'll tell you which are the fastest growth areas in your near where you live, which is amazing, which companies are hiring, what the salaries are like. So that's, I think, is a great resource, and they're all free resources too. Informational interviews. So this is a great way to find out if a job is something that you would like. If you have friends, you're thinking about moving from banking to marketing, and you have friends who work in marketing, or colleagues or friends of friends or other Tulane alumni, you can always ask for an informational interview to learn more about their role, and come prepared with specific questions. What are the skills that you think are most important to have? What educational background is important? What skills might I need if I want to make this change? And you can just sort of keep a running list of questions and answers for these informational interviews. So in doing your research and informational interviews, you may come away saying, I actually need more education in order to make this change. So I've had a lot of clients who say they do want to go into marketing, will end up getting certified in Google Analytics, or take a class in SQL so they know how to do more data management. So you want to really find out, what you need to know. And there are ways to do this that are pretty inexpensive or free. Some of the things you can probably learn on, YouTube is just, I think, like such a great source of learning how to do anything. That's really how I learned how to do PowerPoint and Excel. So you can definitely go on YouTube and find stuff to learn, and, for free, or you can sign up for classes or certificate programs in your area. If, I mentioned before that tech was such a big hiring area. And if that's something that interests you, then there are like tech boot camps that are 6 months long, typically, that are more expensive than obviously free YouTube. But what they really also help you get a job once you've graduated from them. So I've had clients who have done that successfully, who are not, didn't come out of college thinking that they were going to go into tech or any kind of coding, and ended up doing a boot camp and got hired, like a really nice salary bump, and it's worked out really well. So there's, anything from the free to the expensive, and tons in between that are, on like something like a Coursera or a Udemy. that could be anywhere from, $12 to, $49.99. So there's really something for every price range that, to help you get additional skills. And that also looks really good on your resume, especially if you're a career changer, to be able to have on your resume that, certified in, Google Analytics or in Facebook Ad Manager, depending on what field you're going to go into, to get some kind of an upgrade in skills always looks good to a potential employer, and also helps to build your confidence that you can do well and succeed in that field, knowing that you have that additional skills. Okay, so personal branding is such an important part of what I do, and such an important part for a job seeker and career changer. So I really like my clients to create a personal mission statement. And the nice thing about the mission statement is it can really help you with your elevator pitch, help you for your informational interviews, help you in job interviews, help you with your LinkedIn about section. And I like to say, it sets the goals for your career and really serves as your GPS. You have it in the mission statement. This is what I want to accomplish. This is how I'm going to go about doing it. And it gives you something to follow. Looking for a job can be really lonely, and you can feel like super disorganized because you go down like a LinkedIn rabbit hole. So having the mission statement really helps you to stay on point and on track. So here's an example of a mission statement from someone that I worked with who wanted to move into development, fundraising. And she volunteered at a community center near her, at a Y near her, doing, on the development committee, and decided that she wanted to do this full time as a career. And so she set out to, in her mission statement, to talk about what she needed to do in order to do that. So she decided she wanted to take a class in nonprofit management, which is smart and always, looks good on a resume, allows you to network with people who are doing what you want to do and gain some valuable skills and knowledge. Join a professional association to network. Again, great way to meet people in the field, hopefully get some informational interviews, be able to attend workshops and webinars. And she wanted to obtain another volunteer position to gain experience and build resume. So I'm going to talk shortly about smart volunteering. And that's something that I think is a great way to build your resume and learn a bit about a new field. So preparing for your job search. So you're definitely going to want to update your resume. And I have a sort of resume strategy that I employ that I want to share with you, which is you want to build a resume for where you're going, not only where you've been. So if you are changing careers, I'm going to use my, finance to marketing example. How can you build that resume so somebody reading it will understand this transferable skills that you are bringing to the table to them? Because there's always transferable skills from, one career to another, whether it's, communication, verbal or written communication, data management, collaboration, leadership. There's so many skills that you could bring from one to the next. And you want to make sure that your resume reads that way. You want to update your LinkedIn profile to, again, make sure that it will talk about where you're going, not only where you've been, and that your about section is a great way to do that on your LinkedIn profile. You want to line up some references, let people know that you're in the job market and that they may be getting a call from you. And is that something that they're comfortable with, so that in your back pocket, you have two people who will speak on your behalf to potential hiring managers. You want to develop and create your elevator pitch, which you're going to use for any networking phone calls, any informational interviews, and any job interviews. And for job interviews, I call that sort of the first job interview question is typically tell me about yourself. So you want to be able to get that tell me about yourself pitch down for job interviews. And finally, smart volunteering. So smart volunteering is something that I love as a way to try out a new career. And I actually did this myself to gain experience. I became a career coach 14 years ago. And it was a career change for me. I'd been a writer before that. I published a few books and I decided I wanted to do career coaching. So I was enrolled in school. I went to NYU to get my certification, and I ended up volunteering at the Wasserman Center, which is NYU's career services center, much like where Nicole runs for Tulane. And I volunteered there, working with students, helping them on their resume and cover letters. And that was a great way, A, for me to build up my experience, and B, for me to see if I really liked it, which obviously I did. So, here I am 14 years later. But I think, the smart volunteering piece is a great way for you to try out a new job. And there are lots of places to find volunteer opportunities. One website's called idealist.org. There's one called Volunteer Match, another one called Catch a Fire. There's lots of places for you to be able to do volunteer work, even, on a project basis, if you have skills you want to give. And I've had a lot of clients who have done smart volunteering, and those volunteer positions have turned to jobs. So that's also a possibility with the volunteer work. It allows a potential employer to get a good look at you, a free look at you, and say, hey, you know what, this person's doing a great job for us. We have an opening that's coming up. We'd love to give he or she a shot at that. So that's another great way to get in the door at a company. Okay, so next we have networking. And I would say it's virtually impossible to get a job without networking. 80% of jobs are gotten through people we know or through networking. So, I'll say to clients, I'd rather you apply to 3 jobs through your network than 30 jobs without your network. It's super easy, especially with Easy Apply on LinkedIn, to apply to jobs, to just, spit them out and say, oh, well, I applied to 30 jobs. But to apply through your network is a whole different story. That typically will get you into the right pile, I like to say, where you're going to at least get looked at. Make sure that your resume will be flagged. It doesn't mean you're always going to get an interview, but you have a much better chance of getting an interview through your network. So usually it's not top on everyone's list. Like, oh, yeah, I love networking. Usually, people don't like it. They feel like they're asking for a favor. It's really hard to do. Remember, everyone on LinkedIn is there. It's a networking platform. So, everyone is there for the same reason. And networking is relationship building, and it's a two-way street. Just because you're asking someone to speak with them about their job today doesn't mean they may not need something from you tomorrow, next year, 2 years down the road. I've seen that happen time and time again. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for, informational interviews. Utilize your Tulane alumni network. You have a great alumni network. You can look on LinkedIn on the Tulane alumni group. Or just do a search for companies that you want to work for and see if there are Tulane alums who work there. Alumni are much more likely to answer a cold LinkedIn request from you than someone who's not in your alumni network. So that's a great thing to do. And remember, networking is not a one-off. You want to follow up and keep in touch. So, say you have a networking call with someone and they were really helpful to you, and you get a job. you don't want to never contact them again. So you want them to be in your network. So say you've spoken with someone and they were a big Boston Red Sox fan, and you're reading a blog post or you see something on Instagram about the Boston Red Sox. You want to just like shoot them the article, like, hey, I saw this, thinking of you, hope you're well. You're not asking for anything. It's just a way to keep in touch and keep those lines of communication open, because the worst thing is to come back to your network after you haven't been there in years, and then you feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't stay in touch with them, now I have to ask them something again. So just make it part of your routine to try to stay in touch. Even to comment on people's LinkedIn posts is helpful. Join professional organizations. There are lots of organizations that have low cost memberships for young careerists. And professional associations are a great way to meet people and network with people who are in your field. Things are ever so slightly starting to come back to improv. I've been invited to my first in-person networking event next month. So things are starting to come back in person a bit, but you can also do this via Zoom. LinkedIn itself has tons of professional organizations that you can network on depending on your chosen field. You just search LinkedIn under groups and you're able to find lots of organizations and people with whom to network. Okay. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so LinkedIn. So as I said, it's almost impossible to find a job without networking. It's almost impossible to find a job without being on LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that you have a great LinkedIn profile. You want to have you must have a picture of yourself. I like to also have people do a background picture that's in your header that really will also help brand you and tell someone something about you that they might not know. You know, maybe it's like if you live in New York City, New York City skyline. I'm working with a client now who has done influencer marketing. So we did like a really cool background header for her on one of her swag table that she put together to show people what she's done, what some of her skill sets are. You want to have a creative headline that tells a potential hiring manager who you are and what you do. So typically with LinkedIn, the default is your current job, but I like people to change that. And, you know, you can call yourself, you know, social media marketer, or career coach, personal branding, resume development, so that if people are doing a search on LinkedIn, they can use, and if they use keywords, you're hoping that they're going to come upon your profile, depending on what you say, what your headline is. You want to have a professional summary on your LinkedIn. That's called the About section. And that's a great way, especially for career changers. If you all who are in your quarter life crisis and decide, I want to do something else, that's a great way in your About section to sort of make it easier for a hiring manager to see the link. You're making that change from finance to marketing. What are the transferable skills? What are you bringing to the table? So your About section is a great opportunity for you to talk about that. You want to have some keywords on your LinkedIn profile, in the skills section, in your summary, in your headline. How do you know what keywords are? You're going to look at some job descriptions for jobs that you're interested in. And if you line up 6 job descriptions for like marketing coordinator, you're going to start to see the same words over and over again. Those are your keywords. So you want to make sure that you have those keywords in your profile and on your resume for that matter. And you want to connect on LinkedIn. That's why it's there. You want to connect with former bosses, colleagues, peers. You always want to connect with a note. Let someone know why you are connecting. So you're all welcome to connect with me and just let me know why. Hi, Pamela, I heard you speak at the Tulane webinar today. I'd love to connect. If people don't connect with me with a note, I typically won't accept their connection. I have so many connections already at this point. And I want to know why people want to connect with me. Are you trying to tell me something? What's the idea? So having a note just makes it really easy and transparent as to why you're connecting. Follow companies that you're interested in, working in. You can set up alerts for companies and jobs that you're interested in on LinkedIn so that you get them right away. Studies show it's really important to apply to jobs early, and LinkedIn's a great way to do that by setting up these alerts for yourself. You can use the LinkedIn search feature, to search for jobs, and you can really narrow it down by jobs posted in the last day, jobs posted in the last week, jobs that are only remote. So really don't be afraid to, utilize all of those functionalities on LinkedIn. It makes the job search so much more efficient to know how to do that. And I mentioned this before, you want to join groups on LinkedIn that will be helpful in your chosen field. And finally, our final tips for conquering your crisis, and then we're going to have time for questions. We're doing our assessments, and within our assessments, the values, skills, and interests. We're going to set some goals for yourselves on your where you want to go, what your timeline is. As I said earlier, looking for a job can be lonely. So if you even have an accountability partner, that's a great thing to have, someone else who's looking for a job at the same time, or maybe someone through your personal board of directors who you can bounce things off of. Don't compare, try to stay off Instagram, and not look at what other people are doing or up to, because we know that 3/4 of what you're seeing is not based in any kind of reality. It's a moment and snapshot in time. Do what you love. Really think back to what makes you happy, what your career values are. And I'm not a person who's like, get your dream job, because I don't really believe a dream job necessarily exists. But if you can find a job that really checks a lot of boxes on your career values, you're going to be happier. And hopefully through all of the work that I've laid out in the presentation, you will have your crisis will be averted, new job will be gained, and you're going to be climbing up on that happiness meter sometime very soon. So I am leaving you with my contact info. If you want to feel free to reach out to me. As I said, connect with me on LinkedIn, check out my website, or on my Instagram. I always post career-related content. So you can definitely follow me there and keep up to date. But I'd love to hear any questions. If anyone has questions, I would love to hear.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Pamela. This has been great. One of the questions that came through early on was, can you define DEI and ESG?
Yes. One second, I just want to get back to that page. Yeah, so DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's something that is really very important now in companies, in hiring, and something that a lot of companies are hiring for, people who have that experience. And if it's a field that interests you, as a career changer, there's going to be a lot of hiring around DEI, in HR, in the field of HR, in the field of professional development, coaching, training, consulting. It's a really big and growing field. And ESG stands for, I want to get this right, environmental, social, and governance. Again, another huge field for corporations who it's very important for them to be, people are trying to get their corporations to be carbon neutral, very big on sustainability, corporate governance. those are also fields that are growing tremendously. Every company, whether it's commercial real estate or banking or marketing, has an eye towards ESG in some way, shape, or form. I actually have a bunch of young clients, your age clients in their 20s who had interned in fashion when they were in college, and now are all looking for jobs in sustainable fashion, applying to companies that have a focus on sourcing sustainable fabrics or sustainable furniture. So this is also another really big area of hiring. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. We
Sure.
have another question. Someone come off mute. Okay. We have another question. Do you have advice for the overall adjustment to working 40 hours a week? And then there was a comment that it feels exhausting sometimes. Which
it definitely is exhausting. And I think, especially if you have been working from home and are going into an office 40 hours a week, it really can feel exhausting. So, I would say either way, you want to really take breaks during the day, whether it's like a quick coffee with a work friend or another friend, or getting out for 20 minutes and taking a walk. Sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day is really, really hard and can really be exhausting. So if you plan a couple of breaks throughout the day, I think that's helpful. And I also think it's helpful to have something to look forward to at night, even, 1 or 2 nights a week, if either it's going out with a friend or taking a yoga class or getting a manicure, something that is going to make you happy, midweek, when you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have 3 more days left in the office.
Those are great. Okay, the next question is, do you have advice on early 30s wanting to actually get into their careers? Multiple interviews, but nothing seems to stick. It has been draining.
Oh, that's really hard. I think you may want to work on interview skills. I feel like if someone is, and I don't know who the person is specifically who asked the question, but I feel like if you're getting the interviews, it probably means you have good enough qualifications for the role, right? Because I think, I would say if you weren't getting the interviews, then I would say maybe, it's a resume issue, or maybe it's not the right field. But I feel like if someone is getting interviews and not getting the job, that they may need to work on their interview skills. And that's something that they could do, they could try to do on their own, and, read about tips on interviewing, or work with a coach, once or twice to help them streamline their skills. I mean, that's something that I do a lot with my clients is mock interviewing. And it really helps to do that process with someone. So they hear you, you can hear yourself. A couple of really short, streamlined tips on interviewing is, I always think each answer should be no longer than a minute, which is a lot shorter than most people think. I like to answer in bullet points. I like everyone to have sort of 3 bullet points that they would use to answer questions like, tell me about yourself. So you're thinking in your mind, what are the 3 things I'd want this employer to know about me? And you want to make those 3 things that are relevant to the job that you're interviewing for. And then, so those are for those types of questions. And then for the behavioral questions, I like my clients to use the STAR method of answering those. The behavioral questions are, tell me about a time when you had a conflict with someone on your team. And then the STAR method is you're going to talk about the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So you're going to have, I like my clients to have a few different stories that they can use that will help them answer those behavioral questions.
That's great. I did want to have you expand a little bit on the networking piece. I guess this is more of a 2-part question. You mentioned informational interviewing. Can you go a little bit deeper into, what are this is a question I get a lot with the alums that I work with is, what are like the really powerful questions that you recommend people ask during those informational interviews? And then on the flip side, what are some common mistakes that you see people make when they're networking?
Okay, so I think, let's break it down. So like, what's the purpose of informational interviewing? The purpose is for you to find out, is this a job that would be a good fit for me? Is this something that I'm interested in? So, how do you ascertain that? What's a typical day like? Who do you interact with? What kind of skills are you using, on a daily basis? What skills do you think are important for someone to have in this role? What makes someone successful in this role? Because you really want to understand, is this going to be a fit for you? So if you're someone who is super creative and you're doing an informational interview with someone and you're thinking about going into investment banking, and you're going to say, what are the skills that it takes, and they're going to say, well, you need to be really good at Excel. You don't speak to anyone all day and you're crunching numbers. You're like, oh, well, that doesn't really sound like that is something I want to do. So I always say with, informational interviews or career research, it's just as valuable to take something off your list as it is to keep it on your list. Because, you're going to do the informational interviews and you're going to say like, oh, well, like I really thought I wanted to do influencer marketing, but I realized I really don't want to be posting on Instagram all day. I didn't really realize that's what the job was. So I'm going to take that off my list. And that just clears up mental space for other jobs now that's, you can sort of put that to bed. So your other question was regarding networking.
Yeah, what are some common pitfalls, mistakes that you see people make when they're networking?
I think, well, I just gave you like the framework for what I think are good questions. I think some of the pitfalls are really the biggest pitfall, and really the only pitfall I could really say is to not follow up with a thank you note. I mean, that to me is just the cardinal rule. If someone is taking their time to speak with you, you always want to follow up and say thank you. And I think other mistakes are really not asking questions you that are going to be helpful to you to answer. And I also like people to go into these networking situations with some kind of an ask. So, you're networking, you're asking about the type of job, you're asking them questions, and, an ask could be, is there anyone else within your organization who you think it would be helpful, who would be willing to speak with me? Or would you be willing to look at my resume? Or I see that your company is actually hiring for a role that I'm interested in. Would you be comfortable submitting my resume to HR for me? So really be strategic about it, and do your research on the company before engaging in any networking. So you know enough about the company that you're not like, oh, what do you do again? Or, because it's so easy to find that information on someone's LinkedIn or on a company website.
No, that's great. Okay, one more question, unless we've got anybody else, feel free to drop it in the chat. But the last question for now is, can you talk about how you work with clients who are in that quarter life crisis place and have their most recent job has been toxic, not a good fit? So there's this like quarter life crisis piece, but in addition, maybe they're healing from a toxic boss or feeling that fear of like, it's going to happen again. Like, I feel like that's a pretty common theme, especially with those first jobs.
Totally. I deal with that a lot with clients. And I think, it's like sort of a two-part answer. And part one, which is so important, is to help the client rebuild their confidence. Because when you're in a situation like that and you don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to feel confident, and that's going to sort of come off in a job interview. You're not going to feel like your best self in a job interview. So, a big part of what I do is help rebuild the confidence. So how do you do that? So I have a client really think back to a time and a place where they felt really good about themselves, where they felt really good about an accomplishment that they had, whether it was at an internship, in a course that they took, or they wrote a thesis, or whatever it was, or they, made the Olympics, and lean into that in going into job interviews, sort of like block out the past toxic and lean into, this is when I feel really good about myself for my next experience. So that's one, is rebuilding the confidence. Two is, I definitely understand the fear of making the mistake again. So that's why the career values piece of the assessment is so important, because if you're one of the things that's most important to you is having a work environment where you have a very supportive boss or manager, or a collegial or collaborative work environment, that's something that you're going to work really hard to figure out before you take your next job. By asking the right questions in a job interview, like what happened to the last person in this role? What's company turnover like? And trying to find people who work at that organization to talk to them about what the culture's like, to ensure that it doesn't happen, that it doesn't happen again.
That's great. No, thank you. Well, I think that's the last of our questions. And I just want to thank you, Pamela, for your time and for your insight. Thank you for all those that joined. And I would personally recommend giving Pamela a follow on Instagram. I love all of your content and find it very
thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Definitely give that a try. And your contact is here. So everyone, please follow up with Pamela. LinkedIn, Instagram, email, check out her website. Pamela, do you want to close us out with any final thoughts?
I just want to say, thank you all for your attention today. And I know it can be a really stressful time. And I hope that even if you're walking away with, one piece of advice today that's going to make you feel a little more positive about your situation, I'm thrilled. And if you have any questions that you didn't ask today and want to, feel free to reach out and email me.
Absolutely.
So thank you all again, and I wish you all the best of luck with your searches.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.